And the question is no easy question to ask, because it will require me to follow the difficult, challenging example of the Magi. But I think that if you were able to talk to the Magi, they would say, no matter how long the journey was, it was worth it in the end. The first thing it will require that we see from the Magi is, if we're going to follow the star and do something that matters, it will require us not to consult home. With the 2.5-year-old and the 10-month-old, if Kimberly and I consulted home, we wouldn't go anyplace. Right? Because as the time I get Anna ready, and I get her hat on, and I get her coat on, and I get her shoes on, I go over to Seth, and I put him in, and he's a master escape artist. I put his little arms in. Before I zip him up, his hands are out, and he's like this. And then I run over and I get Anna, and she's taking her shoes and socks off. And she says, look, Daddy, I took my socks off. And I say, Anna, why did you take your socks off? And she says, because I wanted to. And I think to myself, I want to beat you right now, but I'm not doing it. We don't do everything that we want to do. Put your shoes and socks on. And then we have to pack the whole house to go to the grocery store. We've got to get the diapers. We've got to get the wipes. We've got to get the bottle. Oh, for the days when we could just get in the car and say, let's go. Okay, let's go. We can't do that anymore. I don't know when we're going to be able to do that anymore. Every journey is a long, enduring journey to make. And by the time I get in the car, I'm sweating, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm 225 pounds, I'm 6'3", and these two little twerps absolutely wire me out. Right? If we consulted home, we would never go anyplace. Those of you with kids, I can't imagine having more than 2 kids. God bless you, you're insane. Why would you do that? At least we have one-on-one, you know? But you're here, and I say, God bless you. You didn't consult home to get here. The Magi did not consult home to go and see the Christ child. If they had consulted home, home would have said to them, no, play it safe, stay here. After all, you know what's here. You don't know where it's going to be out there. Stay here. Home would have said, stay comfortable, Magi. Study the star from afar. You saw it here in the east. Stay in the east. Just study it. See what happens from here. Don't follow it. Home says, if you're going to do something, do as little as possible to feel better about not doing more. Come on, Magi. Study the star from here. Come on, Magi. Say a prayer for the kids. Send a telegram. Shed a tear. But certainly don't leave home. You see, if we're going to follow the star and ask the question, how far can I go to show someone I care, then I must not consult home. Because people who consult home are more concerned about being made comfortable than they are concerned about making a difference. The Magi didn't consult home. Nor did they consult instant gratification. They saw the star and they followed it, not for hours, not for days, not for weeks, not even for months, but perhaps for 1 to 2 years they followed that star before they found Christ. They found Jesus, and He was no longer a baby lying in a manger. He was a toddler crawling around, getting into everything in Joseph's carpenter shop. If they had to have it, if they needed immediate results, they would have quit the journey a long time ago. The other night, when it was icy, I put Anna in the recycle bin and shoved her down the driveway on the ice. It was great, man. It was fun. My word, you act like I about killed the kid. She was fine. I didn't wear a helmet when I was growing up riding the bike. My little girl was fine. Don't worry about her. And we took tons of pictures. And when we got in the house, Anna says this, I want to see the pictures. And I thought to myself, as Kimberly showed her the picture immediately, when I was a kid, this is how old I am, when I was a kid, we had to wait 3 to 5 business days to get them developed. We didn't even have 1 hour photo, you know? But here's this kid, she expects it now. And I do too, largely. We live in a culture that has taught us to expect and to only value what we can have now. And if we can't have it now, then don't waste your time with it. God says some of the greatest things that we can receive from Him won't happen now. But they're worth it anyway. Showing people you care takes time. You can't care for somebody in a hurry. And showing somebody that you care and receiving the goodness of what God would do for you in that, in your own heart and mind, may not even know the results of it until you reach heaven. A missionary in Africa, the teacher there, volunteering his time, and a little boy came to him for Christmas and gave him a seashell. The teacher knew that he had to walk miles and miles, a day's walk to go and get this seashell. And he said, man, it's beautiful, but you shouldn't have walked all that way. And I love what the student said in his broken English. He said, long walk, part of gift, teacher. Long walk is part of the gift. That's what Jesus taught us. That's what gets in my face all the time. Jesus said, go the extra mile. Turn the other cheek. Somebody asks for your coat, give them the shirt off your back. Long walk is part of the gift. Don't consult instant gratification. Third, learn from the Magi's mistake. Don't consult others who are not following the star God's given you to follow. No way of putting it other than the Magi messed up. You can't blame them. They thought that they knew this kid was going to be a king, so they assumed that he would be in the capital and he would be in a palace, and you should go talk to the king. And so they went to see King Herod, and they said, "Where's the Christ child?" And instead of getting a response of encouragement and advice and direction, they find someone who is terrified and paranoid and angry, and they find the people of Jerusalem are very, not just uninterested, but they are disturbed. They're upset about the news that after centuries, the Messiah is there. It's interesting to note that from the time they decide to seek the counsel of King Herod to the time they leave the palace, the star is gone. And finally they get out of King Herod's presence and realizing, hey, there's something not right there. There's something not right about that guy. That finally the star appears and they follow again. I wonder if there wouldn't have been a massacre of the 2-year-old boys and younger in Jerusalem had the Magi not taken the time to consult others who weren't following the star. Why do we do that? God gives us a star to follow. He gives us a need to meet. He gives us a person to love. And we know it's God because we're not good enough to think thoughts like that on our own. And we set out to follow that star and to make a difference. And then all of a sudden we get sidetracked because we decide to consult others who are not following the star. I can tell you it's a surefire way to get off course. If Linda Parks and Jim Dubrow and others who had started Food to Go here in the church in our community had listened and consulted with others who were not following God's star, we would not be feeding hungry children in our community today. Because they heard things like this. Some said, well, we just don't believe there's people going hungry in Centerville, Ohio on the weekends. We just don't believe it's possible that there's some kids going hungry. We just refuse to believe that. They could have listened to that. They could have listened to others that said, well, what if those kids get the food and then they take it home and some rotten adult ends up eating it and the kids don't get a bite of it? Well, I just couldn't support something like that. I'd be too concerned that it wouldn't be used and it would be abused. And another organization, a nonprofit group, said, there's no way that church can do it alone. You won't be able to feed 50 kids, let alone open the door to other kids in the community. If they had listened to those who weren't following the star, we wouldn't be feeding 36 kids a week and we wouldn't be ready this new year to move into a new school. Don't consult others who aren't following the star. Amen? Amen. The Magi learned from their mistake. And they finally found Christ. And they went all out because they did not consult their greed. It would have been easy for them. We just take it for granted. We see the little nativity scenes and they're bearing their gifts of gold and incense and myrrh and the most expensive gifts of the day, and we don't think much about it, like they just had to do that, but they didn't have to do anything. They had made this journey for 2 years. They had left everything, and then instead of finding the Christ child, the king, in the palace, in the good side of town, they find him in the bad section of town on the wrong side of the tracks. And when they pulled up to their house, don't you think that maybe they were tempted, being men who were wealthy, potentially themselves, that they thought to themselves, why don't one of you stay with the camel and watch the gold? We'll go in, make our appearance, and get the heck out of here. They could have done that. They could have been tempted to say, you know what? Our presence is enough. We need not give what we brought. I mean, surely these common people, teenage girl and a carpenter, and a little 2-year-old boy will be thrilled just to have us show up. But instead they got down on their knees and they didn't just give gifts of gold and incense and myrrh. They gave of themselves as they bowed down and worshipped Him as the King and the God that He is. If I'm going to follow the star and ask the question, how far am I willing to go to show others that I care, then I must not consult my greed.